I am starting my winter sowing for my warm annuals as well as my tomatoes in April. Today is April 7th, and we have had a lot of rain here, so I haven't had an opportunity to get out and start my winter sowing, but this is actually a perfect time. I feel like at least I've done this before and it's worked relatively well for me, of starting these warm season types of annuals along with my tomatoes in early April. My last freeze is generally somewhere around Mother's Day. It can be a little bit earlier, but usually right after Mother's Day is a very safe time to plant out many of these very warm type of annuals and tomatoes. I don't start my peppers and eggplants in winter sowing anymore, simply because it has been difficult for me to get fruit in time for harvest. They usually start producing in very late September timeframe, and there isn't enough time for them to produce enough. So I will be starting those indoors. So in this container, I'm going to do the celosia, pampas plume, and the Gomphrena buddy purple, which is a dwarf Gomphrena. And I really haven't seen this before, and I really love the short varieties to put in pots, particularly for fairy gardens. So I was very excited to find this one and can't wait to hopefully get some of these. Now both of these this one needs to be 1/8 of an inch deep, and this one about 1/8 to 1/4 inch deep. So just about almost the same depth. Now the pampas plume is 90 to 100 days to maturity, while the buddy purple is 50 to 70 days. So this one is shorter, but hopefully they'll be okay in the same container, and that I can generally plant them both out around the same time. Now for these, I do want a lot of these, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and plant all of these. I'm just going to cover them with a little bit of soil. Next is this lavender lady and the raspberry cream. I grew the raspberry cream last year, absolutely loved it, performed beautifully for me. And so I also wanted to get a purple variety. This is more of a raspberry pink. They are both the Gomphrena globosa. There's another one which I will be planting next, and it's a different variety. So the leaves look different and just the structure is slightly different. But I do like these a little bit better. So also 1/8 to 1/4 inch deep. And these are also 85 to 100 days to maturity. So there's quite a few seeds. I don't think I'm going to do these all. So last year I grew the raspberry cream in a pot, and they did really, really well in the pot. But I also put some in the ground, and they I mean, they really perform super well in the ground. So these, this year, I don't plan to put them in a container. I am going to just put these in the ground. So the next is this Gomphrena mandarin orange and strawberry fields. And so these are a different type of Gomphrena, Hagena, I don't know. Anyway, they look definitely different. The leaf is a little different, the stem as well. You know, the actual flower is not quite as round and a little bit more, I don't know, oval. And I grew these in pots. They didn't hold up long enough in the pot. Definitely the globosa did much better in the pot. But I do plan to put these in my flower garden. Even the seeds are fuzzier. So I'm also going to be doing a bunch of marigolds and some calendula. So the calendula needs to be about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch deep, and the marigold needs to be a 1/4 inch deep. This is a dwarf variety, and I'm really using this for my veggie garden. I have tried some other ones; they're super tall, and what I really like to put in the veggie garden is these shorter varieties. So hoping I get lots of these. And then calendula, I only want a few in my garden. The flowers you have to keep after them and deadheading them in order for it to continue to flower. So I do feel it's a little bit of a fussy flower, but I do like having it in the garden. There are so many marigold seeds. I think I have enough now for several years. Now these two marigolds I will be using in the cutting garden. I grew these in my veggie garden, but they got super tall and very beautiful. I absolutely love this to add the frilly tiny flower into my arrangement. So now I'm going to grow them in my cut flower garden, and I really love the look of this one. So I'm hoping these will be very pretty. I did also buy the Kilimanjaro one, but I decided after I saw this one that I'd rather grow this one this year. Next is Dusty Miller, and I have not winter sowed this before. I've purchased plants for my mom's garden, and in her garden, you know, they tend to survive, most of them. She's had one particular one that's just lasted for years now. And I do want to add some to my garden, and I want to refresh her garden as well. So I'm going to do an entire container of Dusty Miller. So these are perennial for zones 7 through 10. Light age germination. So all you need to do is press them into the soil. You do not want to cover these seeds. There are a lot of seeds in here, more than I really need to grow. They definitely remind me of straw flower seeds. Next is this blue grandma grass, and I'm not quite sure where I'm going to put this, but I do like the idea of these little eyelets, so I have to think about where I'm going to put this. Not sure if it can be used as normal grass, or is it just more of an ornamental grass. So next is this Cherry Falls tomato, and it's a dwarf tomato. I tried growing it last year, but it got diseased, and I think maybe it was just overly wet. So I am growing it in a container instead of a raised bed this year, and see if that helps that out. And then my Super Sweet 100, I do love this tomato. I really only need one of these, but I'll plant a few, and some of my neighbors, sometimes I give them some of my extra tomato plants. I only have a few of the Cherry Falls left, but that should be enough for me. And these only need to be 1/8 of an inch deep. So I think I'm just going to press it in a little bit and cover it, because it barely needs to be covered, I feel like. Now the super sweet 100 is actually a 1/4 inch deep. Next is this Amish paste, and this one says only 1/8 of an inch deep, kind of like the cherry falls. So next is this Boxcar Willie, and it's a indeterminate. All of them are indeterminate except the next one that I'm doing, but this one's 1/8 of an inch deep. Next is this New Yorker tomato, and this is the only determinate that I am growing aside from actually the Cherry Falls tomato that I did the first one. One of the things I liked about this is it said that the tomato matures earlier than most tomatoes. So I'm hoping that this will be at least an earlier harvest maybe than some of the indeterminates. The last container I'm winter sowing is this basil, and I have Genovese and Emily. I believe the Emily is a compact. Yeah, it's a compact variety. I grow them all in my raised beds, but this one could be better or can be used in a container, even though they do say that it is container friendly for the Genovese as well. So I have placed my winter sowing here on my deck stairs. It is kind of under an eave, and I'll have to keep an eye out to make sure they stay moist. But I wanted to be able to particularly have ease to run out and cover these if one of the nights gets very cold. If they happen to germinate early and we get temperatures under 40 degrees. That's usually where I like to cover them. So for my other winter sowing, I have been covering it with like 3 layers of frost cloth. A lot of this have germinated, so I did want to protect it. But I believe now I can remove it, and we're going to get many nights that are going to stay in the 40s, and that should be fine. So I want to thank you for watching and spending your time with me, and I will continue to give you updates as I move forward. If we do have a very hot day, which tends to happen sometimes in April, there's that 1 or 2 days that gets to 80 degrees. You do need to open up your containers. You don't want things to fry in the containers, or put them in a very shaded area for that day. So I do tend to open mine, and I will show you a video where I did that last year in spring when it got too hot and it could have fried them in a container. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.